Hello, true believers. Boy, oh boy, am I excited. A, because I figured out, well, I guess the main reason, I figured out what's wrong with my phone. No, I didn't figure out what's wrong with my phone, but this is the 5th time I've recorded this exact same episode because there's been glitches on my phone. In this particular one, if it works, which I hope it will, I'm using different software on the phone, which seems to work okay. But I'm also trying a different audio setup as well and seeing if that does anything. Yes, the trials and tribulations of doing a podcast. Sometimes your episodes are lost, even after you've recorded for an hour. So, I want to talk about Marvel SDCC. Marvel was in Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con, and a whole bunch of announcements were made. My wife and I were talking about a bunch of them last night, and I think I'm going to talk about them all in little bits and blurbs. But the most important thing I gleaned from all the information that came through, the thing I figured out was how they're going to bring the Fantastic Four in. What, you say? None of that was revealed at Comic-Con. No, none of that was revealed at Comic-Con, but there was enough hints of it. They did say the Fantastic Four is coming, and they pretty much left it at that. But what I'm going to say is they did release enough details and enough information. I'm going with my coffee. This is a coffee inducing. Hear that? I made a cafe latte this morning because I love me my cafe latte. So they announced everything that's coming. They announced all the new movies, all the new TV shows, everything that we're going to see over the next little while. And the one thing that of note that I just want to bring up here in this particular segment is that they release they give us the release schedule for the next, 10 projects, whatever it works out to be. And of those 10 projects, they included the TV shows in the release schedule date, which I don't remember seeing them do before. They never said, Avengers is coming out, and then Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then whatever the next film was. They never showed it in that way. This time, they said Black Widow's coming out, and then the next movie, I can't remember what it is, I don't have the order in front of me, but then after that is going to be the first TV series, maybe WandaVision, and then Doctor Strange, and basically there's a chronology to the movies and the TV shows, which they didn't have before, which basically shows that Marvel is having a full integration between the TV shows, at least on the streaming series, and the movies. So we're going to see some interaction. So these are not throwaway TV shows by any stretch of the imagination. These are part and parcel of the whole shebang. So that's really exciting. So what does that mean? They are introducing in this Phase 4, if you want to call it Phase 4, or if you want to call it the new version of Marvel, they're introducing one aspect, and they're going hard on introducing that aspect. There's hints of WandaVision. Well, no, not hints. They're saying WandaVision. That Wanda, that being Scarlet Witch, is going to be in the Doctor Strange film. And then her lead up to that film is going to be the WandaVision streaming series. So they're leaning towards the magic. Now in Doctor Strange, Scott Derrickson, the director, indicated that this is going to be a more horror-based movie. There's going to be horror elements in it, and it's going to have scary elements. Now, the Doctor Strange that I know and love, who's also a peer of Reed Richards in the comics, we'll get into that in a sec, He's always facing alternate realities, not alternate realities, alternate universes, pocket dimensions, and a lot of the visuals that Steve Ditko created for Doctor Strange are scary, mind-bending. I mean, these are dimensions that would drive people crazy, and Doctor Strange navigates these horrorscapes, for lack of a better term, in his own inimitable style. So we're introducing more of that side in the next Doctor Strange movie, which is being led by WandaVision. So we are seeing a supernatural element being added to the Marvel Universe, and I think that supernatural element is going to be prevalent in all the properties, including Shang-Chi, which always had a kind of dirty side to things. Yeah, there was tech and stuff like that, but I think we're going to see magic, because when you're talking about the 10 rings, the nature of those rings seems to have a supernatural bent to them, in that I think there's a magic side to it. Those rings are mystical. So we're seeing in Shang-Chi the same thing, another supernatural, mystical side of things. I think Black Widow might be the anomaly to all these, and Spider-Man, which already came. But I think we're leaning towards, okay, this is what we're doing in this new phase, post-Endgame. Some of the other things released, I think Winter Soldier, I think that's a pretty example. I think in what we're pointing out here, and then with the idea that Blade is coming into the universe, I think we're leading to making horror a theme in the Marvel Universe, a prevalent new direction, a new spin, awakening this other side of Marvel that, leaves it open to introduce characters like Werewolf by Night or the Night Shift. Look those up; those guys are cool. Or Frankenstein, like any of those things. We're opening it up to that, and with the failure of Universal Pictures with their own werewolf mummy thing, Marvel is just seizing this opportunity, showing how to do it right. Because the horror side of Marvel is great. So, how does all this lead into the Fantastic Four? Well, I've been reading the Fantastic Four since I was just a little itty-bitty boy, the age of 4 or 5 years old, whatever it was. And I've followed the series for long times. I've read the entire John Byrne era. I've read a good chunk of the Stan Lee Kirby era. Basically, I've been collecting it non-stop for years now. At this point, I've gone back and reread some of that stuff. And I think the best way to describe the Fantastic Four are Imaginauts. Now, Reed is a big brain, the smartest man in the Marvel Universe comics side. And on the MCU side, it's always been Tony Stark. Tony Stark's always been the man. Now, with him gone, that leaves a gap, a storytelling gap in the MCU that's missing. So they need a big brain. They always need to have someone that can play that role. So how are they going to do that? Well, they're going to introduce a new big brain, but I think they want to do Fantastic Four right, and the right way to do it is a slow introduction of the team, the concept of such a team, and how such a team can exist in this world. So by introducing the horror elements, the supernatural, the other dimensional elements, these are things that didn't quite fit in with Tony Stark. It was always tech-based, and it was always a tech answer to everything. While Reed Richards was more rounded in his scientific discovery, he was a master of all types of science. But particularly, the Fantastic Four were always going into space and going into other dimensions, kind of like Doctor Strange does. And learning about these new species, these new technologies, these new supernatural elements of science. That's the Reed Richards that I know, that I grew up with. that, has appeared. He's an Imaginaut. He's always discovering new things. Instead of building things and develop things, he's learning about the things around him and going out and exploring. He's an astronaut, but an Imaginaut. So, introducing these elements opens up the world to a Reed Richards and makes it more feasible for that sort of character to make his debut. And let's not fault anything. If they do the Fantastic Four right, the Fantastic Four is Reed Richards and his companions. The whole family element is important, but Reed Richards is the leader. Make no mistake about it. So, I think what's going to happen is we're going to see hints of Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four over the next score of movies, the next 4 or 5 movies. There's going to be hints to this big brain, this Imaginaut. They're probably not going to name drop him for a few films. I think we'll see a name drop a little later on, but you might see little Easter eggs like, well, there's this big brain studying these dimensional apertures we're seeing. Because I think one thing that's going to happen is, because of what Thanos did and that 5-year gap, why was there a 5-year gap? There's a lot of reasons for that 5-year gap. It's going to allow certain things to happen. So perhaps Reed Richards and his team have been around for the last 5 years, but since there's no movies to describe the last 5 years, there's no what happened in the last 5 years, all that stuff's missing. That allows Reed Richards to have been in this universe for 5 years. So as Mr. Fantastic or whatever. So I think there's going to be build up to indicate that. But I think also what we might see in the films is the next sets of films are going to tell us what happened in the last 5 years. I think what Thanos did with the snap, and then consequently what Banner did with his own snap, and then Tony with his own snap, I think the very fabric of the universe has been rattled. And I think that the veil between dimensions is going to be thinner than it's ever been. And by the veil of dimensions, there's all these other dimensions, pocket dimensions, side dimensions, like there's the negative zone, there's all these realms that are what the supernatural is. I think there's apertures that have opened up into our universe as a consequence of all the shakedown that's happened. And what we're going to see is supernatural creatures appearing in our universe now. Potentially over the last 5 years since the first snap. But I'm not sure if they're going to go with that. But suffice to say that I think the introduction of all these types of elements, the horror elements, Doctor Strange is going to be probably working on his Sorcerer Supreme bit. And I think over the last 5 years, I think something called the Illuminati will have appeared. Now, I don't know if they're going to call it that or not, but I think the general principle of the Illuminati is going to be present. The Illuminati is a group that contained the likes of Reed Richards, Professor Xavier, Tony Stark, Namor, who else is in there? Black Bolt, who else is in there? Anyway, I think there's a group that is working on these apertures and all this appearance of supernatural elements into the Marvel Universe. I think the Illuminati are working behind the scenes to help the world. And if they don't use the 5-year gap, that's fine. Maybe Reed Richards has been around all along, working with the Illuminati for the last, Marvel years of 10 years or maybe even longer. If they decide to go with Reed Richards in his 40s, he should be when he started out, was in his 40s. Or mid-30s or whatever it was. If they go with this concept, I think he's been around for a while, or at least the last 5 years. And he's been working behind the scenes with the Illuminati, with or without the powers that he had. And I think what happens is Tony might have been offered membership in this group at some point, which might see the potential return of seeing Robert Downey Jr. maybe just do a cameo to explain the Illuminati. I think that'd be cool, and I think he'd be willing to do something like that. I mean, it'd be, 2 or 3 days of filming to do that. But I think what's happening is the Illuminati have been dealing with things on the side, specifically Reed Richards, maybe as the leader of this group, or the preeminent brain in that group. And I think he's been working on the outside, hidden from everything. And I think what's going to happen is we're going to see these supernatural elements get bigger and larger, and the threat to our plane be more prominent. And either Reed Richards is going to step up in terms of a more public face and bring his team with him, his Fantastic Four, or he's going to separate from the Illuminati and just step out and do his thing. I think that he's going to leave the Illuminati at some point, and maybe that's going to be his introduction. But I think in the Illuminati, I think we're going to see Victor Von Doom's in there, and I think this is the schism that you're going to see between the two characters. And I think Doctor Doom potentially may be revealed first before Reed Richards is in the MCU. And I think it's going to be their disagreement over what to do about these apertures. And Victor Von Doom is always going to be willing to sacrifice people for the greater good of the all. And I think Reed is always going to be like, well, there's always a way to do this without anybody dying. And I think they're going to be attacking one of these schisms. And I think that's where, Von Doom gets the whole armor. Basically, his face gets broken up, and he becomes actual Doctor Doom. And I think that's going to be the advent of Doctor Doom. Now, I think elements of everything I'm talking about here, I think is going to be occurring as Easter eggs in the background. So maybe we might see mentions of Doom, Von Doom, or whatever. And then there's going to be elements of, well, there's a Baxter Corporation that's looking into this. And maybe, as many people speculated earlier, the Avengers Tower in New York City is probably going to be overtaken by the Fantastic Four. I think I can see that happening. And that becomes the Baxter Building, the corporation of Fantastic Four. I think we're going to see something along those lines. But I think what's also going to happen is, because of the snap, and because Thanos was beaten, I think on the world stage, the entire universe has become largely aware of the Earth and its potential for power, damage, that sort of thing. So I think Earth has been put on everyone's radar. And particularly, it's going to come on the radar of Galactus, who is insatiable in his appetite. He eats planets. That's his role in the universe. He creates balance in the universe by eating planets. And I think what's going to happen is he's going to want to eat the Earth, because it is so full of superhumans and supernatural elements and all these things, that it might be the planet he can eat that will finally sate his appetite. And basically, I mean, he's always on the look. He eats a planet and he's satisfied for months or years, and then he's hungry again and he has to eat another planet. That's the concept of Galactus. But in his search for planets, and this is run through some of the Silver Surfer comics and whatnot, that if he could just find that one planet that is just so nourishing that maybe he will never need to eat again. And I think the introduction of world events that are leading up to Galactus' arrival, and if the comics, if you remember, there was a firestorm in the sky. There was rocks floating above the Earth. We may see different heralds in different capacities showing up on Earth as different villains. There's going to be a multiple film lead up to something bad is coming to the Earth, and we're never going to mention it's Galactus. We may not mention heralds because it's us comic fans are going to know that that's what's coming. But I think we're going to see a precursor of quote-unquote heralds that won't be named as such, but they're going to be the villains leading up to the world event of Galactus arriving. And I think it's going to lead up to the final villain of these, these signs of the quote-unquote apocalypse, which will be Galactus arriving. But that last sign is going to be the Silver Surfer, and he's going to be introduced as a villain, like it was in the comics, 2 or 3 issues before Galactus' appearance. And he's going to be turned before the arrival. He's going to have doubts, and he will turn and aid the Fantastic Four, in the final Fantastic Four movie, or the first Fantastic Four movie that happens. But I think we're going to see that build up. We're going to see those Easter eggs leading up to the world of the Fantastic Four, because Fantastic Four could be its own film universe. There's enough stuff in there. So I think we're going to see elements of the Fantastic Four world introduced over several movies, leading up to the Silver Surfer's arrival, which is going to herald the arrival of Galactus. And I think this is where, and I think Doctor Doom is one of, maybe not a herald, but I think he's going to be one of the, the Easter eggs that leads to the introduction of the Fantastic Four. I think if Doom came first, it would make sense. Maybe not as Doctor Doom, but as Victor Von Doom in some way. And you have him in multiple movies. He's a guy behind the scenes. Maybe he's already left the Illuminati, if they're going to go with that angle. I think there's lots of options here for them to use to lead up to the Fantastic Four. But I think the world that they're building, and actually with Spider-Man Far From Home, I haven't seen it yet, but they're introducing the alternate worlds and alternate realities. This is Fantastic Four, like, to a T. So actually Spider-Man does fit within, what they're doing with WandaVision, with Doctor Strange. They're introducing the universe as a larger whole, that side that Doctor Strange and the Fantastic Four are dealing with all the time. And I think Doctor Strange is a perfect way to introduce Reed Richards, because if, they're both part of the Illuminati, whatever they're going to call it. But I think that's what we're going to see. That is my theories, folks. I do want to talk about the individual series one at a time, or in groups or chunks. But I think the Fantastic Four is the next Avengers. I think it's the next big event movie. And I think we're going to see the Fantastic Four have their own film. That'll be the event movie. It'll be Fantastic Four leading the heroes, because really the Avengers, after the loss of so many of their people over the last Avengers movie, I think the Avengers as a team is not really there, and I think they don't have a uniting team. I don't think they have a uniting team now, and I think the Fantastic Four is going to be that next team event film. Anyway, that's what I got for you. Hope you enjoyed this clip, and we'll add on to this with other clips soon. Ciao. Let's continue this along, true believers. All right. What else do we have coming up? I'm not sure the actual release schedule of these things, so I'm kind of guessing, because the nature of this show a lot of the time is I'm doing this in my car, and as much as I would like to have notes pasted on my front windshield, it is not safe to do so. So please keep that in mind. So we've got the WandaVision series, which I think we've talked about at length at the beginning of this episode. But the WandaVision, I believe, leads into Doctor Strange. So let's cover these two in one fell swoop. Here's what I think is going to happen with WandaVision. It's interesting he's called WandaVision one word. It's not called Wanda and Vision. It's not called Scarlet Witch and Vision. It's called WandaVision. And if I've got a lot of encyclopedic knowledge in my head from the Marvel Comics side of things, and sometimes some of this stuff moshes together and mixes together, and sometimes that's how I come up with some of these theories that I come up with. But sometimes it comes up with weird combinations or timelines or the names of things. So I believe the series WandaVision, where Wanda uses her powers to, because keep in mind, in the comics, reality changing powers, it used to be her magic was probability manipulation, but basically it's a wish power that she has. So in that series, if it's the one I think it is, Wanda creates a family from her will. Wanda's gone through so many ups and downs in the comics, so much drama, so much, like this poor gal, like honestly, this poor gal, she's been through so much. So in WandaVision, she manufactures her own family, and I haven't read the series, but I read the synopsis of it, and it was one I've almost picked up a bunch of times. But it's a happy, idyllic family that she builds from pure will, using her magical powers. I think we might see something like this here. I think her grief is going to be so great that I think we're really going to see the reality warping ability that she has. And if you think about it, they hinted about it in the Avengers movies. She was the only one that could destroy an Infinity Stone. A human being destroying an Infinity Stone. Think about that. I mean, it's there. It's in the MCU. They've said that she was able to destroy Vision's Infinity Stone. That's freaking impossible. So they are hinting at alpha level power here. Alpha level power. In the comics, there's very few that wield it. I mean, there was Wanda, and then there was, I think Magneto was alpha level. There's very few that have it, but she's there. She's one of those. So if they basically showed it in the movies, it's there. So the ability, she is basically an Infinity Stone onto herself. If you think about it, it takes an Infinity Stone to destroy an Infinity Stone. And if she's able to destroy an Infinity Stone on her own without any accoutrement, hey, this is the MCU's version of the Dark Phoenix. There isn't anything she can't do. So I think we're going to see some of this. We're going to see her getting a better understanding of her cosmic level power. And I think, and here's another thing that came up in the comic books. Vision did have his entire brain mind wiped. Now, if you recall in the comics, Vision was based on a brain scan of Henry Pym and Hawkeye, and that created the personality that was the Vision. Cool, right? In the comics, it came off of Jarvis, which was the computer program that Tony Stark uses, and which was also based off of Jarvis, which was the butler for the Stark family, as seen in Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Peggy Carter. So, if his thing is wiped, she may have the ability to bring him back, but I don't think we're going to see it quite like that. I think in the comics, they brought Vision back, but he just didn't have that same personality. They couldn't manufacture a personality. It's far too complex, even for godlike beings like Wanda. But in time, he did develop his own personality, and we saw the basically kind of the white, like off-white version of Vision for a long time in the comics, and was that version, the one that had been mind wiped. So he still had all the AI, but he just didn't have any of that personality. And if you'll notice in the Avengers movies, that's exactly what happened after the Soul Stone was removed. He was a colorless version of himself. So I think we're going to see the Vision resurrected in that manner, without the personality. And WandaVision is going to be her soul searching that happens after Endgame, and her just kind of figuring stuff out. But I think we're going to see cosmic levels of power, and they've really hinted that WandaVision is the most important piece of the next phase of movies. Kevin Feige actually indicated that in his SDCC stuff. So I think what we're going to see here is we're going to see, and it was said, but I don't think anybody really paid attention, which is Kevin Feige's magician ability, really, to say, you know what, I told you guys this was coming, and everyone thought it was just an aside, something he had said, and they didn't really read into it, but I'm reading into it big time. I think Wanda's ability to affect the universe, I think, is what is going to be the crux to the aftermath, to the fabric of reality, the fabric of the veils between dimensions. I think she's going to be working hard. She's going to be given a prominent role in this new phase to fix things. But I think her psyche is going to be unable to handle this, and I think this is going to be our Dark Phoenix of sorts. So I think that's what's going to lead into Doctor Strange, and basically looking like, oh my god, we got to repair the fabric of the universe itself. It's all, it's all messed up and all screwed up. And again, like I said in the earlier part of this episode, is I think now Earth is now on the radar of the god beings, and by god I don't mean the Asgardians, no, I mean we're talking about characters like the In-Betweener, which was often hinted at. Chaos and Order are two other ones. There's Immortus, the Celestials, like all these characters, all these cosmic level characters. I think we're going to start seeing this sort of thing going on. And I potentially, I don't know why I'm thinking of this now, but I think a Secret Wars is likely to happen down the road. I don't know how it's going to happen, but my gut is telling me it's something that they want to do. How they're going to do it, if they're going to, follow the same parable, like using a being like the Beyonder, who was actually the Tesseract. Interesting that the Tesseract is back in play again. And the Beyonder was basically a Tesseract. And Molecule Man got his powers from a Tesseract that broke open. Might we see Molecule Man, a famous Fantastic Four villain? I could go on. And I will. Doctor Strange is going to be great. We talked about this at length. He's going to be dealing with the veil between dimensions that is incredibly thin at the moment. He's going to be dealing with the multiverse, which is right in the title of his film, Multiverse of Madness. He's going to be dealing with the repercussions of what happened in Avengers. The fabric of reality itself is in trouble. Everything's not working as it should. The universe itself, also called Eternity, who's another cosmic figure. I think we're going to see Eternity make an appearance as well. And I think we're going to finally see that introduction of Adam Warlock, who potentially is another role that Keanu Reeves could play. And he could be someone that jumps between all the films as a cosmic guardian, basically going, oh, this is broke, let's go fix this, and making sure things line up to fix that particular rift in space-time, and then making sure, like, I think you could have Adam Warlock as the guy, kind of like the Wolverine in the X-Men movies, who's in every single thing, and he's the guidepost. You could use Keanu Reeves in that capacity. Everybody loves Keanu, and having him popping up here and there in movies would actually be pretty damn cool. Would they do it? I don't know, but throwing it out there. But having a character like that, you can even use, oh my God, what's that guy's name? Zac Efron in that role. I mean, he'd be perfect for something like that. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. Moving along the timeline, the release timeline. After Doctor Strange, I think we covered Loki already. We covered WandaVision. What else we got left? We got What If. Not sure where that's fitting in. But I want to skip What If and jump straight to, there's a Hawkeye series, which is probably going to deal with his dealing with with Wanda's decision. Is there a chance that we might see Jeremy Renner in the Black Widow movie? I think there's a great chance of that, and I think we need that payoff, and I think that's a great lead-in, having him in the Black Widow movie, then leading into his own streaming series. I think that'd be great. Him dealing with it, but I think in the Hawkeye thing, we're going to deal with his Ronin time, what he's done in the last, what he had done in the last 5 years, dealing with the grief of the death of his entire family. But I think the thing that was hinted, and based on the logo that we saw, Kate Bishop is showing up. We are going to see the younger version of Hawkeye. If you haven't read the Hawkeye series, it is brilliant. Anyone that was a fan of Michael Gaydos' art from Daredevil, that great run, that honestly, that's the run that broke Brian Michael Bendis to the mainstream, who ended up being the architect of Marvel for a number of years. He was a brilliant writer. His work on Daredevil with that style of art, well, that's the style of art that you're seeing in Hawkeye, in the Hawkeye series, and this, I'm pretty sure that this series is going to be based on that. And in the series, Hawkeye is down on his luck all the time. He gets involved in these cosmic skirmishes. He's always at the center of things happening in the Marvel universe, but he's just a guy with a bow and arrow, and he's always beat up. And in the series, he always has a number of bandages over his body from cuts and scrapes and stitches and broken bones and all this stuff. And I mean, he's a human fighting in a superhuman world, getting the tar kicked out of him. And he's always down on his luck in that he's horrible at managing his personal life. I mean, this is something they didn't do in the series, which I don't know how they would touch, but in the comics, his string of X's is ridiculous. There's Black Widow, there's Mockingbird. There might even be a Scarlet Witch in there. I can't remember. I mean, he's Spider-Woman is another one. But in the comics, or in the MCU, he's got his family, and he's got his wife, and he's deeply in love with his family. And I think I like that version better. But I think the series is going to be what did Hawkeye do in between mourning his family. And we might, and this is a prediction, we might see the more comic version of Hawkeye in that 5 years, with his family gone, with everything gone to him and nothing to live for. I think he's going to live in a number of bad choice romantic liaisons, because he just doesn't care. And the Lothario version of Hawkeye, we might even, I don't know, we might see it, but maybe they're going to tame it down as they should. I think that's what we're going to see in Hawkeye. And I know a lot of people kind of crap on Jeremy Renner and his portrayal of Hawkeye, but I honestly like it. I just think that the way the MCU, the way Marvel Studios has used Hawkeye, has been to showcase other characters, and as such, Jeremy Renner and that Hawkeye have really gotten the short end of the stick, which is really unfortunate. And I think this is a chance to make things right, give some depth to the character, but actually finally give him time to breathe. With all those other big name players, with all these fancy schmancy powers, Hawkeye has never had the chance to breathe, to have that level of character development that's essential to falling in love with a character. So we're really going to see this, and I think Feige is probably putting emphasis on that because of what people have said, because he does listen to us. And I think he's going to make Jeremy Renner and Hawkeye right. And the best way of doing so is by going back to the source material, which he's obviously doing based on the logo of Hawkeye. And I think he's even hinted as such. So very excited for that as well. What else do we got going on? Outside of that schedule, well, this is probably the big one. So I'm going to end with the last two, which is, what am I going to cover first? We're going to cover What If last, but let's talk about Thor: Love and Thunder. In an amazing turn of events, Natalie Portman is returning to Thor. And not only is she returning to Thor, she's going to be Thor. In the comics, she did become the female version of the God of Thunder, taking over the mantle, as others have before her, most importantly Beta Ray Bill, the horse-faced alien who took over for Thor, with Stormbreaker. I believe that's the hammer he was wielding, which I think ends up being the name of Thor's hammer in Avengers. Could be wrong. Anyway, this is a coup. This is freaking awesome, actually. I am a fan of Natalie Portman, and she's been particularly glib about her non-return to the movies, and actually she held herself in. She could have been a big jerk about everything that happened to her by Marvel Studios. And let me just go into a bit of detail here. She was, I thought she was delightful in the first Thor, and she was actually one of my favorite parts. She played that nerdy science character to a T, and meshing her with Thor, the bumbling idiot that he was in the first movie. I think that was genius casting, and to get an Oscar winner like herself in the franchise, that was one of those instances of doing that. And I think probably a lot of the reason she did the movie, because I don't know if she's a comic fan or not, but with Kenneth Branagh directing, which I don't care what anybody says, I still think the first Thor is a great film. It's just a not very accessible film to the general masses, but for a comic nerd like me, it was right on the nose. It was the regalness I expected, the campiness that you often see in the comics because it's just so over the top with its mythology and all those sorts of things. I thought it was great, and I thought that, I thought she was great in the movie too. Like, she was fantastic, and I liked it. And I think she had lobbied, and she had lobbied for the director of the second film, who eventually went on to direct Wonder Woman instead. How about that for a turn of events? It would have been the first female director Marvel would have had. And I think I have no doubt that if she had directed, the name is escaping me, the lady who made Wonder Woman, come on people, it's just on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, she went on to make Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman is one of the best movies. It's just phenomenal. It is just awesome. But if she had done Thor 2, I think Thor 2 would have been a much different movie. There was something going on there that she stepped down, and instead they got Alan something, who did the second Thor, which I did enjoy. I actually still enjoy it, but I think her direction would have been a bit more female empowering, which the series probably could have used at that time because it was really going in that direction. Thor is a fan favorite amongst the women of the world because of, it's Thor, right? I think going in that direction would have kept Thor up with its audience. I think Thor 2 could have expanded its audience and been the breakthrough star over Captain America, really. Jane Campion? Is that what I'm thinking? God, why am I sucking? She's an amazing director, and her work on Wonder Woman is phenomenal. All right, well, send me your hate comments. But anyway, but they took that director away, But because she still had a contract to fulfill, some felt her performance was a little wooden in the second one. And based on, personally what happened, yeah, you know what? Maybe her performance was a little wooden, but think of what led. If you get to go to work somewhere where you've been wronged, I mean, she brought that woman in to direct. She brought her in. And then to have it fall apart, it's like, well, I definitely wanted to do the sequel because of the direction it was headed in, and all of a sudden it changes gears. As an actor, it's like, oh, okay, well, the CEO of our company changed, which is the movie, right? And all of a sudden, we're not doing things that we were doing, and now all of a sudden it was it was going to have a strong female empowering film, to now it's just going to be Thor and fighting some stuff. I can see the frustration, but I will say she kept her commitment and did the film, and I think the acting was good enough on all parts, and I mean the reverence given to it based on Endgame just shows that it was important. And Taika Waititi is back as director, who did Thor Ragnarok. And you know what? We probably wouldn't have seen Thor Ragnarok if Thor 2 had a different director. So there's advantages, disadvantages. But I'm sure what happened was, I think Taika Waititi probably just called her and said, "Look, you need to come back to the franchise. What do I need to do to make this happen?" And I think he just made it happen, because he seems like a genuinely great, nice guy. So I think that's what happened there. Anyway, one left. What if? And I have lots of theories about that. One more segment to go, folks. One more segment to go. All right, this next excerpt of this episode. Here we are. We're going to talk about some of the releases that are coming out over the next phase, or whatever you want to call it, of the Marvel Universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe, that is. The one that's coming out first, the first thing out of the gate, is going to end up being Black Widow. Now, this is a long gestating film, something that's been talked about for a while, something that fans have been clamoring for. I think originally it was the intent to be the first female-led Marvel film. For some reason, it just never got off the ground, and Captain Marvel ended up assuming that role. I know people are saying the first one was Ant-Man and the Wasp, but I think that was less that sort of thing. But Black Widow is finally coming, and what is it? So it's taking place between films. This is showing a bit of background on the character. I'm assuming we're gonna get some pre-Avengers stuff. Maybe what led her to joining S.H.I.E.L.D., about that whole program when she was a child that made her infertile. I think that whole thing, we're going to see probably, I mean, it's going to be Captain America-ish in that we're going to be in the past, but I think we're going to jump through a few different, not timelines, but periods of Black Widow's life leading up to the event, to the final two Avengers movies. I think that's what we can be expected to see. I am excited for this one. I think they could have just put a movie out a few years ago and just done it, but maybe they needed to do more development of the character to raise interest. I know they want to do it right, and they want to, see it to fruition and see the right thing happen, and making sure they have absolutely the right script to make it work. But I think by doing it the way that they're doing now, that they've built history with this character, there's more interest in the character and what happened before, because of the way the story's been laid out, that you're going to get more bang for your buck, and there's definitely more interest. I don't think Black Widow is going to be a series of films, like a 3 set of films, like the other properties that we've seen. I don't think that's going to happen, which is unfortunate. say. One of the interesting points about Black Widow is the villain is being revealed as the Taskmaster, which I'm wondering what they're doing with that. And the reason I say that is because we had Frank Grillo playing Crossbones. I don't know if he was actually called Crossbones in the movies, but that's who he was playing from the comic books. And he had that skull motif. We also had the Red Skull in the first Captain America movie, and I'm wondering, with Taskmaster having that skull mask, maybe they're going to try to tie all that in together in some way, shape, or form. And maybe Taskmaster is actually part of a larger organization, the Skulls organization, or maybe there is maybe we're going to see the return of the Red Skull in some fashion, and maybe that's the big surprise of that. Or a hint that this Red Skull, everything that happened with the Infinity Stones and all that, that somehow he's back, and maybe he's been back for a while or something. Like, I'm not sure. It just seems really weird that they're taking another skull-themed villain. It's too convenient. It's just way too convenient. Or they could have downplayed the skull face on Taskmaster, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're trying to make it, live up to the comic, but they always have ways of tying things in together, tying them up neatly with a bow. So maybe we're going to see something along those lines. So, we'll see what happens. We'll definitely see what happens. I am looking forward to it because I think Scarlett Johansson as an actress, I've liked her in a lot of different types of movies, and she's one of those actresses that transcends genre films. When she went in to do the Iron Man 2, I'm like, she's the girl from the rom-coms, I wasn't 100% sold, but man, she's really owned the role. She knew nothing about it going in, and she's actually gone and done her homework, and she's actually, she's a great actress, don't get me wrong. She's definitely, one of the great actresses of that generation. But I think using her is to put her in that role, even though I wasn't crazy about it at first. I think she's really come into it in her own, and she's really owned it. I'm just wondering if we're going to see anything in this relationship with Bruce Banner, which I still seems forced and a bit heavy-handed. And maybe that's something we're going to see in this movie, because in Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, I think that whole romance with Bruce was just like, oh, it's there and it's happening. And, they had reasons to be together, but there was a chemistry there that they didn't get to. So I'm wondering if they're going to touch on that at all. I'm suspecting they might. So we'll see what happens there. I'm pretty excited. The next movie out of the gate is The Eternals. Now, I'm not excited about it yet, and I'm going to be honest. There was some of the movies I was not excited to see before they came out, and then they came out, and then I'm all over it. This is one that I think, as we start to see teases of it, I think we're going to get more into this. I have a suspicion of what they're doing here. I think they are going to use the Eternals as a basis for mythology in the Marvel Universe. And by mythology, we've got the Teutonic mythology, the Norse mythology, basically, Thor, Asgard, all that stuff. We've got that in the Marvel Universe, and that's always been a prevalent thing in Marvel Comics. But they've always touched on all of the different mythologies: the Greek, the Roman, the Egyptian, African. Basically, all those mythologies have always played in. But because of Thor, by and large, Asgard has got the most face time, or the most cover time. So I think maybe what they're doing here, because you get Salma Hayek. So first off, you got Salma Hayek in it, and you get Angelina Jolie, both Oscar-winning Hollywood people. They both have impressive resumes of work, and it's always been impressive when they get one iconic actor from the past. When they got Michael Douglas, or they got oh my God, I'm blanking out. She was in Guardians of the Galaxy. She's part of the Nova Corps. Glenn Close. They got Glenn Close. They got they got little, like Sylvester Stallone in Guardians of the Galaxy. Like they get like legendary actors in Kurt Russell. Like, but you didn't usually get a couple of biggies in a film, and that's what we got. That's what we're getting in this one. So to me, this says that Marvel is really banking on this. Maybe they're putting a little extra effort into this one. And I think what they're trying to do here is I think they're actually trying to reconstruct mythology. Because a lot of the characters from the Eternals are really offshoots of Roman, Greek mythology. There's a lot of similarities between the two. And I think maybe this is how they're going to introduce gods. I mean, the only thing they've ever touched on in terms of gods or mythological gods has always just been the Asgard side of things. We've never seen the other aspects of it. Might this open the door to Greek and Roman, or are the Eternals actually the Greek and Roman gods? Because the Greek and Roman gods, and basically all the gods, are all different kind of permutations or different interpretations of a basic mythology. There's always a Zeus / Odin I'm a little weak on my mythology today. There's always a head figure. Then there's always a queen. Then there's always the Aphrodite-like character. And then there's always the Artemis / Diana character. And then there's always, like, in all the mythologies, there's a lot of similarities between them. And are they going to use the Eternals maybe to explain how the worship of those mythological creatures came from? Are we going to hear the explanations for gods on Earth? I don't know. I think that might be something they do, because then it expands a whole other side of the universe. I don't know if they're going to go full-fledged to it in this particular film, but they might lead towards doing that. And the reason I'm bringing this up, and the reason I think they're going to do something like that, is I think they really want to introduce Hercules in some way, shape, or form. I think they're going to want some sort of replacement for Thor at some point in time. They're going to want another god-like figure, similar but a little bit different. And I've been a fan of Hercules. He was always used in the Avengers comic books as a sub-in for when Thor wasn't available. There was something going on in his comic book, and they didn't really want him in the Avengers. They wanted him exploring things, on the other side. Like, Hercules was always the go-to replacement. Like, he had the same level of power. He was kind of doltish, drank a lot, that sort of thing. Like, we got that. And I think with the evolution of Thor as a character, from where he started to where he's been, I think maybe they might want to have another character that's like Thor when, just a big party guy, and maybe lead it. Now, I don't know if he can get his own film or anything, but it's nice to have someone like that, a comedic element to the movies that you could use. What's interesting, too, is Hercules was also part of the Champions. And maybe that could lead to something like that, something similar to that. But anyway, I think maybe that's what they're going to lead to with that, and maybe start showing some of the other gods and that sort of thing. And I mean, I keep hearing rumors of, they're trying to get Keanu Reeves into the MCU. If they nabbed Keanu Reeves for the Eternals, I think that'd be a coup. I think I'd rather see him do something else, but we'll see. I mean, to me, he still would make the best Silver Surfer. I think him, of all people, his surfer attitude, whoa. I mean, Silver Surfer, I don't know. I think he could pull it off, but I think, he sometimes gets written off as being kind of a vapid actor, but he's actually incredibly intelligent. And the boy can act, man. There's no doubt about it. He definitely can act. So I think we might, I don't know. It'd be nice to see if something like that happened. Similar, Vin Diesel's always been teased to do another role in the MCU, as has Bradley Cooper. So maybe we're going to see them coming up along the way. But the Eternals, I'm excited for, because I think it's going to be, flipping things on their head and changing. And the fact that there isn't a subtitle, because Doctor Strange has a subtitle to it, Shang-Chi has a subtitle. They all got subtitles. This is just the Eternals, so they're basically leaving us all guessing what that's going to mean. So very excited for that. I think after that, there's a TV series in there. I'm not sure which one it might be. I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier falls next in the continuity. And I think what we're going to see here, I'm less excited about this project. I know this is basically Falcon taking on the mantle of Captain America post Endgame. I think it's probably going to focus on that, and maybe, the character of Falcon and the character of Winter Soldier, yes, they've kind of had a bit of their build-ups in the Captain America films, and a little bit more in the Avengers films, but not to the extent we've seen with Captain America or Iron Man or Thor, for that matter. So I think this might be a way of, okay, let's build these characters up, so when we do maybe another Captain America film with someone else in the role of Captain America, or whatever they decide to do in that next phase of a Captain America, I don't think they just want to give him his film right out of the gate. I think they want to build that up. But I also think we're going to see a shared mantle of Captain America between both of them, between Winter Soldier and Falcon, as it was in the comics at different times. I think they're basically going to share that responsibility of carrying on in Cap's name. And we're going to see that camaraderie build between the two of them. And, I think I think it's going to be good. I'm less excited about that one, I guess, but they haven't really revealed much yet. There's a general intent, but I enjoy them in the Captain America films, both of them. But as individual characters, I want to see what Marvel can do. They're going to have to explore those two characters like they did with Steve Rogers, which was brilliantly done in the 3 films. So that's that. I can't remember. I think there's another TV scheduled one after that. Probably Loki, I think. And Loki is taking place after the events of Endgame, where Loki ends up with the Tesseract. So really what this does, it reduces or eliminates all the stuff that happened between the first Avengers film and all the events leading up to Endgame, or Infinity War specifically, when Loki bites the dust. But I think what's going to happen here, because he's going to be in possession of, I just figured it out. See, that's the magic of these podcasts. He has the Tesseract. And who else had the Tesseract, kids? Red Skull. Is this where they're going to do some payoff with the Red Skull? I think Loki's going to cause some chaos. Oh my god. Are they going to do, I think it was called Acts of Vengeance in the comics, where Loki, behind the scenes, assembled a bunch of villains. If they go with that... Okay, so in the comics, when Acts of Vengeance happened, Loki, pretending to be somebody else, assembled the great villains. And what he did, it was kind of like an Illuminati group of sorts. And it had Doom, it had Magneto, it had Kingpin, it had Namor, I believe, Wizard from the Frightful Four, and someone else, maybe like the Wrecker or somebody, I can't remember. Basically assembled all these villains and basically switched them up and got them to attack not the heroes they normally fight, to kind of throw everyone off their game. It was kind of a neat little thing. And we saw Magneto, and it was Red Skull there too. So is he gonna, if anyone can get Red Skull off of Vormir, it would be someone with the Tesseract. Yeah, there's an interesting theory. Now, I don't know if you do the whole Acts of Vengeance thing, but the fact that they both had the Tesseract, the fact that we got a German guy and Red Skull, and they worship the Aesir, or the Norse gods, an interaction between Loki and Red Skull, man, would that be great. Man, would that be awesome? Maybe we're gonna see like a villain show here. I don't know. I'm excited. Now I'm excited. But I mean, Tom Hiddleston, I don't care what he's in. I've seen him in a few different things now. I saw him play Hank Williams Sr., who's brilliant. Very good actor, incredibly underrated, needs to get more work. Anyway, after that, what do we get next? I think we got Shang-Chi immediately after that. It's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. As I suspected, and as I mentioned multiple episodes ago, I suspected that they were going to get rid of Shang-Chi's dad from the comics because Marvel actually doesn't have the rights for that character. But Fu Manchu was, in fact, Shang-Chi's dad in the comics because they actually bought out the license for Fu Manchu. Fu Manchu is a racist interpretation. It's good they're not using Fu Manchu. That's all I gotta say. I think Mandarin also had that capability or capacity to be an incredibly racist character, but the fact that they didn't do enough with Mandarin and there was a lot of complaints about it. I mean, Feige listens to the people, he listens to the fans. I can't see him above not course correcting, but using what came before and not correcting it or changing what came before, but improving upon what already came and give us what we really want. I mean, he's really good at lip service and paying the fans back. And I think by having the Mandarin finally make an appearance, it lends credence to Shang-Chi. And man, I'm out of the whole slate of movies, I'm most excited about that one and Doctor Strange 2. But with Shang-Chi, I mean, with the rings, we talked about this in the previous portion of this episode. We're gonna see the rings are like, where do these rings come from? What do they mean? Is it going to be symbolic or not? In the comics, they were magical rings. I don't think they were really technology, or maybe they were made into technology later when, you know, the history was rewritten about the character and his rings. But I think we're going to see a kick-ass Mandarin. Now, I really, really loved the interpretation of the almost Mandarin from Iron Man 3, who ended up being Slattery, Kevin Slattery, Ben Kingsley's character. Anyway, if they had gone with the Ben Kingsley character, I would have been okay with that. If that was actually the Mandarin, I would have been totally okay with that. They're going to have to come up with someone as interesting as Ben Kingsley to play that role. I'm very excited for that. Out of the whole slate of movies, maybe I'm the most excited about this one. Probably. Now, a lot of you don't know who Shang-Chi is, and that's good, because I think what's going to happen is they're going to be able to do a lot. Like with Guardians, there was no expectations, and they were able to just, but they actually got it right, which was fascinating. But anyway, with Shang-Chi, super happy to say we have a Canadian actor playing the lead. He was from Kim's Convenience. He's playing Shang-Chi. Like, what an awesome, I don't know. As a Canadian, I'm super stoked about this. I think by having this in here, not only are they opening up the supernatural to the whole universe, to the whole MCU, but I think they're also opening up another side of grounded characters whose powers are a little bit different, instead of powers that are from an accident or a test experiment, or we're seeing something else, like a different level of altered human, for lack of a better word, where the guy, Shang-Chi's awesome, and he's so awesome that some writers that were fans of him back in the 70s when he was a thing, they brought him back, and you see him in the pages of the Avengers, you saw him in the pages of the X-Men. Like, that's it. He is due. And I keep trying to I lost a lot of my comics in various things that happened over the years, and I don't have any of my Shang-Chi anymore. I had them all in French because you were able to buy 12 issues for like $5 or whatever it was back then. But man, I'm actually super stoked for Shang-Chi. That is the one. that is the one. That's the one I'm looking for, and I honestly can't wait for. So, we're gonna cap this section off here. We're gonna run into the rest of the films in the next section. If I can just stop it. All right. Now I remember what I'd forgotten. The director of Wonder Woman was Patty Jenkins, and she was the first one approached to do Thor 2. And that was the request that Natalie Portman had given for the director she wanted, and that was the direction they were actually going in, and it didn't happen. My apologies for screwing that part up before, but anyway. The last film on the slate, or the last bit on the slate, is the series called What If, and this series is going to have a formal introduction of the Watchers in it, which you saw a brief glimpse of them in the I believe Guardians 2 is the one, or it might have been Thor Ragnarok, I can't quite remember, but Stan Lee is talking to a group of the Watchers, and this was one of the negotiations. It's definitely Guardians 2, because James Gunn had negotiated with Fox for a couple of trade-offs for a couple things, because he really wanted the Watchers, and he also wanted access, I think, to Ego, the Living Planet, and things like that. So the series of the What If is going to take place off of Infinity War / Endgame, and they're going to be probability scenarios. What if this had happened instead of that? I know one of them is, what if Agent Carter had become Captain America? Just a few scenarios like that. And it's obviously based off the comic book, also called What If, and it was a very famous long-running one. And some of the famous storylines that came out of the What If comic were things like, what if Jane Foster had become Thor, which actually happened later in the comics. What if Spider-Man had joined the Fantastic Four, which also later happened in the comics. What if Rick Jones was the Hulk instead of Bruce Banner? Just a few of those. I have a large number of What If comics, and they're really great scenarios, and they're usually done by they're one-off issues, so it didn't have a regular series writer or artist or inker or colorist or any of that stuff. But to have a series like that, it's going to be animated, and then it seems like it's a throwaway series, but they're actually getting the actual voices of the actual actors from the films to do their own voices in the film, and it's like everybody. It's like it must have been worked into the contract in some way, shape, or form that they would have to do additional ADR, perhaps, or something like that, which is really what. I mean, it's kind of what you're doing in animation. You're kind of doing ADR work, where you're, redoing your lines. ADR is audio digital relooping, I think, or something like that it stands for. Because sound is never recorded off the ground in a film. It's never recorded off the camera or off the mics, or the sound is, but then it's patched in and corrected in studio. So the interesting thing with this is that they're getting all the actors to do this, and they're all going to be spin-offs, apparently, off of the Avengers Endgame movie and Infinity War. So I think they're putting some importance on this, but I think what they're showing, like the thing they talked about was alternate timelines and that sort of thing. They talked when the Ancient One was talking to Bruce Banner, and they're talking about how she's giving us a visual representation of what happens when you go back in time and you do something, and then it creates a branch off of the main timeline. Basically explaining alternate realities, is explaining how that works. And really what if is it's alternate realities where one thing changed everything, and it's kind of going off that theory. So it's going to be really cool. And does it tie into things, or is it just telling stories? Or is it going to give us more insight into things that happened in more background? I'm really interested to see what they do with that. But also the animation style that they're going to be going with. Is it going to be different from episode to episode based on the material presented within that particular episode? Is that how they're going to do it? Or is it going to be, the same look all the way through it? Because I got to tell you, what Sony did with Into the Spider-Verse, I mean, Marvel has not put out an animated film of that quality on its own. Into the Spider-Verse was a Sony Pictures thing. And it's freaking awesome. Like, if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend going to see it, because it is one of the most jaw-dropping films in terms of style. I don't know if I want to call it photography, but the way everything's shot, the blending of styles, the level of quality of the story, all of that stuff is just phenomenal. I've never seen an animated film of this level. It is so unique unto itself. I don't think there's anything that would come close to that. But anyway, the animation is going to be key. I mean, the storylines are going to have to be tight and they're going to have to be good. But what are you going to do visually? I mean, they've got effects and looks and tones and all that in the films, and they got it down really well. But what do you do in an animation film? You have to do something. And you're going to have to, break barriers. And if you want people to watch this darn thing, you're going to have to do something very special and very different to make it worthwhile. So, I don't have too many predictions about this, but maybe they're going to explain the science behind alternate timelines and all that, maybe in some greater detail. So you can take all this stuff and make work with it. So, anyway, I think that covers us. There was a bunch of other things that were also discussed. These things all seem to have timelines, all except for the Blade thing. Blade doesn't have a timeline, but they unleashed the actor and showed the actor and talked about his involvement. So, I mean, they're in a pre-production phase, and there's probably a date they can assign to it. But the other stuff that they talked about, yes, there will be a Captain Marvel 2. I mean, I think it's a pretty foregone conclusion that there's going to be another Spider-Man. I know there was a 2-picture deal with Sony to do Spider-Man, like a 2 original picture, and then, cameos and other stuff. But it was a 2-picture deal. And with Spider-Man just crossing the 1 billion mark at the global box office, I think they've proven that, the way that they've redone Spider-Man, because this is the 3rd iteration of it, the way that they've done it works. Everyone is happy with the casting, the direction, the villains particularly. I mean, look at Michael Keaton in the first one. Rave reviews in a career redefining path that he's on, from Birdman to this, and a bunch of other stuff he's doing. Like, definitely one of the great actors of our generation, of his generation. Like, no doubt about it. And I have not seen the current Spider-Man, so I can't tell you how Jake Gyllenhaal did. But I mean, he's been great in everything I've seen him in. He's always a pleasure to watch. And I think there's hints in that movie as to some of my theories here. So it's going to be interesting with this episode going out before I go see Spider-Man Far From Home, and seeing if any of the hints of what I've said are actually going to show up in this film. I've been spoiler free on the movie up to now, so I think I'm good, man. Anyway, outside of that, what else can we say? He did say Captain Marvel 2 was coming, and I think that's a safe assumption that was going to happen. I mean, that movie broke $1 billion, so I think pretty safe to say that's going to happen. But what about Ant-Man and the Wasp? Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see any further mention of that. I really enjoy the Ant-Man films. I really, really do. And to see Hope Van Dyne being Wasp was a great way to explain continuity and finding a way to blend Marvel continuity with, with continuity otherwise from the MCU. Sorry, I just almost viewed an accident here on my drive. So I hope those continue. What else do we got that started? And I guess Spider-Man, that. Thor 4, which we already covered. And outside of that, any second movies of anything. Oh yeah, Guardians 3, sorry. That should have been the obvious one. We got a Guardians 3 coming. And James Gunn, the only thing that James Gunn said was, look, I'm doing Suicide Squad right now. I mean, he already wrote the script for Guardians 3, so the writing of the script is done. Once he's done with doing Suicide Squad, I think there's no reason he can't just dive right into Guardians and start pre-production on that. And he wants to do he wants to do it right, and he wants to do it well before he comes back to Marvel. So, I mean, be patient. It's going to be great. I really liked Guardians 2. I know some people didn't. They didn't like it as much, but I thought Guardians 2 was a vast improvement over the first. I love the first one, but it just, the expansion of everything. Kurt Russell was phenomenal, playing Ego, all that sort of stuff. I really like that. I really love the interplay between Nebula and Gamora. That was actually one of my favorite things in the film. There's just so much good in that film. But that is my wrap up. This went a little long, but I want to make sure I covered every base. I want to make sure we talked about every little thing. So, which of these theories struck true with you? Which of these make the most sense? Which of these do you think will happen? You can message me. You can find me on Twitter at SeanGeek. You can find me on Instagram at SeanGeek Podcast. You can find me on Facebook at SeanGeek Podcast. You can go to my website, seanmcginity.ca, and you can message me on there. There is a little subscribe button in there. There's a subscribe button on all of those things. I'm also on a whole bunch of other places. You can find me, just look up SeanGeek or SeanGeek Podcast, all one word, and you can find me on your favorite streaming service, on Twitch, on all those other ones, Imager, all those other ones. I'm kind of all over the place, but my main three are Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So you can find me there. Send me a message. Let me know what you think. And that's it, man. We'll see you guys on the flip side.